Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Gina Doyle and I'm the product designer for Verify Testing and Runner. I just joined the UX team about a month ago on July 12th. So I'm going to talk about my UX onboarding and UX buddy experience. So here's an image of kind of how I've been spending my first month of my onboarding time. In the top left, you'll see the handbook. A lot of it has been reading the handbook. As you all know, the onboarding issue contains a whole bunch of links. So that's the majority of my time right now. I did realize that at some points I was reading through and not really taking in what I was reading. And I think that I learned I need to add more breaks into that. So if anybody else is starting or has to read a lot, I would recommend doing that. And then I also realized that as I started taking on product issues and UX KRs, I ended up having to go back and refreshing my memory kind of on the topics that I had read, which I think is not a bad thing, but I did realize that I missed a lot in the beginning. Another big chunk of my time has been spent watching unfiltered videos, which is the bottom left. And I'll usually watch them a little faster, like on 1.5 or 2 times the speed. And I feel like the topics there, I was kind of able to resonate with more than just reading it in the handbook. And I think that's mostly because it gave so much context about the problem at hand and like how to solve it. And it was easier for me to learn with the visual too. And then another big chunk has been issues, which I think is all of our lives right now involves GitLab issues. I think it's awesome that we use our own product. That has been really cool to see. And a lot of the conversation happens in that issue as well. So it's easy to catch up on the history of what happened, especially for me who was kind of exploring the issues in my product areas and then could easily get up to speed through the discussion that was there and issue the links that were added into the issues. And then finally, my other portion of onboarding has been one-on-ones and coffee chats. I'm really lucky to have my manager, Hayana, and my onboarding buddy, Vitika, helping me out. They've both been really supportive and I appreciate that. And also they're both really organized, which is really easy for me to work with too. I'm glad that I was also being given the time to be able to meet a lot of you on the team, and I still have a lot more of you to meet. And then I was also able to meet a lot of people in my product teams, which was nice. And I also realized I took advantage of the coffee chats things, I think, in the first couple of weeks because I set up a whole bunch of them and then realized that it was a bit overwhelming because I set up so many. So going forward, I know I'll have to split those up. The next thing I wanted to go through was my product designer onboarding issue, which I linked. It's in the agenda. It's also in this screen. And I wanted to go through some of the larger categories of kind of like how I reflected on it in the, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. So if you want to look at more details, feel free to check out the issue. Some of the big ideas and biggest learnings was learning about runners, which is a highly technical area. And I realized that I needed to like look through the technical documentation and product videos to get a better sense of it, and even look at some competitors and see how job executors worked within the development workflow. Another thing was UX scorecard versus the category maturity scorecards. I've never had to do any of those processes before, so it was really interesting to learn the differences there, and I'm still learning about the UX scorecard as I'm carrying out that UX OKR initiative there. Another thing I learned was taking breaks during reading, which I kind of went over the last slide. One other thing that I reflected on myself is that I put a lot of pressure on myself to complete all those tasks and the issues. And I think when I see the checkbox, I just want to check them all off. And I talk to everybody about it, and everyone makes me feel very the opposite way, like I should not be pressured. So that is something that I just realized about myself that I reflected on. And lastly, recording videos is a huge part of the design workflow. I think that's been awesome. I think it's an easier way to kind of describe how your problem or your project went instead of just writing it on the screen. Some of the big surprises was that we all have to use GDK or Gitpod, and it's necessary for the design workflow. I think that's also cool because it brings us closer to the development workflow and kind of forces us to learn more about GitLab as a product. And then some of the big questions I had is, why was GDK failing to install or start? I finally did get it installed and it's working properly now, but it was a struggle. And how do I apply the design workflow cycle to my everyday tasks was another thing I was struggling with. And I think that's going to come with time, but I'm getting more used to it now, is just trying to figure out, like, how do I now pick up issues and what's the best way to go about that? So some other things is what went well. A lot of that was around learning more about the product, my product area specifically too, with videos that were product demos on YouTube. Using Loom to record videos was really easy. I liked that a lot because I could chop out my mistakes. And then using the web IDE to create simple MRs has been great. I actually really prefer using the web IDE over like my terminal. And then getting help from Vitika in meetings or asynchronously. She's always willing to hop on a call, which has been great because we have very distinct time zones. And then always receiving detailed and organized plans from Hyana, who has helped me feel better about the state that I'm at. Things that didn't go well, GDK was a struggle, like I said, and then the project and website using GitLab pages was somewhat difficult for me. And I realized that I was trying to follow the documentation and I ended up having to watch like a demo video to complete it. So yeah, something that just took a little longer than expected. And then something that could be better possibly would be adding a timeline view of what should be completed over time. I think the general onboarding issue broke it down by days, and it kind of gave me a sense of what I would complete over time. And this one, it was just like everything. So I was thinking of maybe trying to improve that by submitting, like creating an issue around it and discussing how we could propose a solution for that. And then I just wanted to quickly go through how I've been staying organized throughout the onboarding experience. I've been using a markdown file to track my weekly priorities and tasks, which I really like, and I stole that from Hyana as well. And that's been helping me keep the smaller things in track. And then the larger things, I'll have milestone issues with a table to track my issues for that milestone, and then any UX KR work that overlaps within that time. And finally, for meetings, I will usually hop on about 45 minutes before and just asynchronously like update whatever questions that are in that agenda. And then I'll also create action items for myself, which I like doing, so I can take on whatever items that came out of that discussion. And finally, I'm going to zoom through this. The UX Buddy experience has been great, and I just wanted to share some of those things that have been going well so far. So Vitika and I meet weekly for one-on-ones. It's really great to be able to work with her again because we worked together previously. So that was comfortable, like coming in, having someone to know. And then, like I said before, we communicate asynchronously through issues in Slack, or we just hop on a call like if we have time. And the other thing that she's been providing me is links to previous work that's been done that I can reference to complete whatever it is that I have to complete, which has been really useful. And she has been providing me a lot of leadership and mentorship, especially reflecting on her own onboarding experience and what can be better for mine. And then I've been using her support for the UX scorecard that I've been going through now that relates to our UX KRs. And she's been really great in collaborating through that. That's all.